right, there we go. We are
Hello, how's everybody?
there. We go, and there's my finally my lighting gets a little bit better. There we go. We're adjusted.
Now
Welcome
you
back, Jimmy.
welcome back. After Memorial Day, we are back to discuss the big and beautiful bill,
Oh
or like
yes,
Elon Musk says, it created a major deficit. When the
yeah.
vice president of this country says this bill is bad, when Elon Musk says this bill is bad, it's bad.
hmm And Elon said that on his way out, and so that was a shot at the president, and the hard work he stated about what Doge did and finding the $150 billion in so-called waste, and he was hoping that there would be more cuts, more trimming of the budget. And Elon's like, he's disappointed, but I'm out of here. I got a couple of companies to run.
Well, let me tell the American public one thing. The U.S. government is not your problem. It's the corrupt Congress and Senate that runs it. That is
Mm,
your problem. When you have congressmen and senators enriching themselves based on their position of power and voting for things that would allow them to get more power and or to make a president happy, because I'm going to start with one. Does anybody know what's on page 901 of the big and beautiful bill? Ah, it's a tax exemption for sun tanning machines. They don't pay
well,
taxes. And I wonder why. I wonder why. And who's that addressed to? And who that will keep happy? That will keep happy Mr. Orange. Okay, just to tell the American public, can somebody, anybody who has the guts to tell me how exempting us, these machines helps us, how it puts money in your pockets, how it helps your kids' education, how it helps with our roads or anything? A sanitary machine, how does it help the average Joe? It doesn't. But it's in there because it was ordered by the President of the United States so he doesn't have to pay taxes. A billionaire trying to get himself exempt from paying taxes. So that's the interesting thing I would like to start with. But let me bring you to why Medicaid and SNAP is going to be changed for the rest of our lives. What was the reason for doing it? Fraud?
right.
Bullshit. Misspending? Bullshit. The big and beautiful bill takes two things. We want to reduce the taxes of the rich, the powerful, the billionaires in a grand percentage. And most of the taxes that are cut are not to the middle class, they're cut to the rich. And before somebody said, well, you never mentioned the poor, because the poor don't pay taxes. Sorry. If you're poor and you meet the criteria poor of the United States of America, you don't pay tax. Oh, but I pay sales and property taxes. That's to your state. That's not a federal thing that the federal Congress can control. But when you pass a bill, you have to, if you're going to reduce your income, then you have to reduce your spending. So the spending that they reduced, even though it's not enough, was Medicaid. Because who gives a shit about the poor? Just like it was said in the movie History of the World Part 1 with Mel Brooks.
Good
That's
movie.
a Republican statement. The Republicans don't care about the poor, they care about the rich, and they care about themselves. They have just fucked over the poor by reducing SNAP and reducing Medicaid permanently. Now, liars like Mike Johnson and congressmen from Texas are going to tell you, well, this is going to reduce fraud. It doesn't. Why doesn't it? Because if they knew where the fraud was, they would, and I'm going to say this again, they would already dealt with it. Here's a second thing that they don't tell you. Medicaid is run by the states, not by the federal government. States put the requirements, states do a lot of things. Arkansas and Georgia put together a job requirement thing, and it became a headache. Why? Well, because half of the people file for exemptions. Why? Well, the disabled, they're not going. They can't work. The children that are under it, which is 40% most in this country, they're under the age of 18, and legally they cannot work. So they have to file paperwork for those kids. Mothers who are taking care of sick kids or sick parents have to file paperwork, and those who are working, mostly don't qualify for Medicaid benefits because their income is too high. Okay, so those few that work up to 80 hours a week with Uber, DoorDash, and Grab, those may qualify, but most states say that single men
Mm-hmm.
do not qualify for benefits. So they're out the window. So really, you're doing something to make yourself look good. Oh, we are changing it. No, you're not. The other thing they came up with, fraudulent people on Medicaid. According to the federal government Medicaid office, that's less than 0.5%. They're caught and they're taken off.
Mm-hmm.
Do some people lie in order to get there? Yes, but they're not illegal. They're Americans, and I'll give you an example. The most prevalent people who commit fraud on Medicaid are women who live with their partner. Some even live with their husband,
Mm-hmm.
claim they don't, so they and their kids can get Medicaid. That's the biggest fraud in the United States. And those people are U.S. citizens. Okay? Okay. The largest fraud in Medicaid is doctors billing for dead people, doctors billing for services they never provided, hospitals overcharging Medicaid, and then their CEO getting elected to the U.S. Senate, uh, and so on. So when people talk about fraud in Medicaid, it is not the U.S. citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So these billions of dollars that are going to be cut off are not cannot address exclusively a fraud. What's going to happen is that each state is going to receive less funding. They're going to sit down and say, okay, where do I tie down? And basically, they're going to have to tie down in areas of providing less services. Look, the CEO said, it's not me, the Congressional Budget Office said, not me, that this would mean that 7 to 8 million people in this country are going to lose their Medicaid benefits. But that if that was just the only area, I would say, okay, that's bad. Now let me put another area. Ever heard of Coastal Health Services? Ever heard of Park Place Health Services? Ever heard of Inspire Health Services?
Yes.
Those people, 70% of their income comes from Medicaid because they
That's right.
treat mental health patients who don't have insurance because they're not sane enough even to fill out a form. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
if you go to a hospital at night and you don't have insurance,
Ooh,
Medicaid covers you,
correct.
and so on. So when people tell me, how is this going to affect? Well, there's going to be less money for the hospitals. The hospitals are going to say, hey, if I'm not going to be compensated, the federal law says, take care of these people and we will pay you for it. And if you're not paying me, then you're not complying with the law, so I don't have to. It's going to be messy. Last but not least, it is for people in the group between 63 and 65 who have retired early but don't qualify for Medicaid, but they do tend to qualify for Medicare, so they provide them with Medicaid. Look,
Okay.
fraud is a strong word to use. SNAP is even worse. SNAP, you have to go in, show your driver's license, show all your paperwork to get on. And with all due respect, the fraud was with SNAP was basically not only the people. It is a little bit of a different. Here's the fraud is kind of interesting. You go to a bodega in Chicago or in New York.
Mm-hmm.
You go into a neighborhood store, and you have SNAP, and you want to buy something that is not supposedly to be used for SNAP,
Right.
they'll take your SNAP, and they'll take it a 2 for 1. So that's a well-known secret. But the
Sure.
person who's committing the fraud is not only the customer who
Right.
receives it, but is the owner of the business. And that's why when people talk to me about fraud, yeah, but it's not only one-sided; it's two-sided. Because
Right.
supposedly the owner of the store is supposed to say, "Hey, sorry, but I cannot accept that for cigarettes." But they accept it, and that's how they survive. Oh well, I cannot accept that for for what you want for liquor. They accept it. So
Right.
it's a known fraud that it takes 2% participants. So yes, but it's not that the person who's receiving SNAP doesn't qualify for it. It's that they're
Okay.
using it appropriately. Okay, happens to be that the person qualifies for SNAP, happens to be an alcoholic. Okay, that goes without saying. Or somebody qualifies for SNAP and somebody steals it from them. Yeah, but
Hmm.
it's not necessarily the fraud that they implicate. And the amount of money they're taking away is more than what the total reported fraud for Medicaid and for SNAP as per. So we know it's not going to cover. But in order for President Trump to help the people who have been buying Bitcoin for him, the people who went to his dinner in New Jersey and paid $1 million per person to sit down with him and cozy with him and tell them what they want, these people are the ones who are going to benefit from the big bill. And believe it or not, the only time I'm going to agree in the last 3 months with Elon Musk is going to create a 4 trillion with a T, 4 trillion deficit. Why? Because we are taking less in than what we cut off. We cut off just to give the impression that we were doing something. But I have a defiance for the U.S. Congress, Republican Congress. You want to solve the problem? It's easy. Just cut 2 trillions out of the defense budget. They'll survive. They'll function. Cut all the contractors. We don't need any more tanks. We don't need any more jets. We don't need any more boats. We don't need any more destroyers. Just cut them off. And that way, your big, beautiful bill would not create a deficit. Oh, wait a minute. You don't want to cut the Defense Department because that's a
Yeah.
sacred cow. But fuck the poor. That's a Republican statement. Fuck the poor.
Wow.
So,
Jimmy, I want to take two points that you just mentioned.
mhm.
Um, One, the projected budget deficit of $3 to $4 trillion, depending on who you're talking to. But before that, I want to talk about the coverage gap because there are about maybe 10 million people across 10 states, and now I'll check that number. However, there's this coverage gap that because 10 states, mostly southern states, decided not to expand Medicaid, those individuals will not be affected. Like here in Florida, we won't feel the significant cuts, we won't feel it fully because of the fact we have not here in Florida decided to expand Medicare. That point, I would like for you to address there
You're
first.
right. We did not expand. So those people who are to be expanded on are not included in the number. But there's another thing. Uh, if the cuts would just go to the expansion, I would agree with everybody. There would be 10
Okay.
states that would not be affected. But since we don't know, this is where the problem lies. Okay, we're going to be 880 million short. How are we going to cut this? Are we going to just address it to the expansion? Or we could just say, hey, take 880 and divide it by 53. And people say, 53? Well, Medicaid goes to Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands. Just in case you didn't know that. It does. So that's 53. Okay, divided. So are you going to just say, we're going to treat you all equally and cut you off this way? We know that's not going to happen. Why? Because The delegation of California is going to fight you. The delegation of Florida is going to fight you. The
Mhm.
delegation of the states that have power are going to fight you. The states that have one or two congressmen are going to get fucked. That's always happened, always will. That's U.S. politics, okay, at its best. And because Juan, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands don't have a person in Congress representing them that has a vote, they're really going to be screwed.
Mhm.
The cuts could go wherever the U.S. Congress wants to cut them, and they have no power to speak for. So, have said that, that is my concern. If Florida loses, let's say, 10% of what it was receiving from the federal government, that's close to $90 billion. So it's a lot of money.
Sure.
So it's still a lot of money. So if we look, if we receive $10 billion less, that would cut off, if in effect, more than 500,000 people off of it. You're gonna have less of an income. Oh well, budget and do better work. Bullshit, and stop talking lies. If you have less money, you have less money. Go into Publix and try to say to Publix, okay, I have 10% less income now, but I'm going to find a way to budget, and it's not going to affect the quality of food that I'm going to buy for you or the amount. We both know that's bullshit. So basically, stop telling the people that it is. Now, those who expanded are going to have a bigger problem than those who didn't. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I'll accept that. And that's the only semi-intelligent thing that Rick Scott did. And for a man who has half a brain, he didn't get it completely wrong. But he didn't do it for that reason. The reason he didn't do it, he wanted nothing to do with Obamacare. Let's
Sure.
stop pretending that it was for another one. Uh, Same thing. He didn't take unemployment. So yes. So it's going.
And also didn't invest in the ultra fast speed rail or whatever high speed rail here in
Correct.
Florida.
Which basically right now there's one between the airport in Orlando and Miami, and I understand that the owners are making a lot of money. So,
Yes.
so for those of you who think it might have been a waste of time, effort, money, I'm not sure. But yes, that. The other thing that we need to do is we do not know once they come down and say, this is the less amount of money that you're going to receive, they're going to sit down and what rules are going to apply and how are they going to reduce the income. And let me explain to the American people how this works. They're going to sit down in a room and the hospitals are going to be there. Advent Health's going to be there. Orlando Health's going to be, all the hospitals are going to be there.
Right.
Big health insurance companies, Florida Blue, United Healthcare, and all, they're going to be there. But guess who's not going to be fighting in that room are the poor.
Right.
So when it comes, push comes to shove, probably the hospital benefits are not going to be cut off. Probably the clinics are going to be cut off, and your thing is going to be cut off. And this is something that somebody told me that I think is crazy, but it's a possibility, and it's a reduction of what you pay the doctors. Now
Mm.
it's $22 per visit, and say, well, doctors, we cannot afford to pay you 24 anymore. We're going to pay you 18, and those $4 at 2 million visits a year that people that they have, that's going to give us something like 44 or $8 million to spare, and then we're going to cut down on what we pay the labs, and then we're going to cut down what we pay in the pharmacy. Yes. And you might say, well, that sounds reasonable, James. What are you objecting to that? Look, I'm a lab, and you're going to offer me less money, and it's not profitable for me. I'm out. I'm a doctor. You're going to offer me less money, and it's not profitable for me. I'm out. I am uh, uh, a lab where I blood tests and stuff like that. You offer me less. It's not profitable. So there is where I'm concerned. How, if they do go that route, say, well, we're just going to pay you less. How many of those are going to take off? That's a good question. Or one of the things that I've even heard worse: stop prescribing certain medications.
Oh, right.
And by stop prescribing those medications, Medicaid won't pay for it. And if the doctor does prescribe you those medications, tell you, well, yeah, the doctor prescribed that, you're on your own. Go and pay in the pharmacy because Medicaid is too expensive. We're not going to pay for it. It's getting scary. It's getting scary because to reduce the taxes that the rich and the powerful pay in this country, you are going to sacrifice the health and the well-being of many Americans. That's a scary thing. It's an inconceivable trade, and it's a trade that I'm going to even go worse. This is my biggest concern.
Okay.
Even if some by some miracle the Democrats win the House and the Senate, I don't see them having the cojones to say, "Fuck this! I'm going to increase Medicaid. I'm going to increase that, and I'm going to increase the taxes to the rich." I don't think they have those cojones.
Mm.
Lately, I'm not sure where the Democratic Party stands on anything. And I'm still a Democrat. I have not abandoned the party, but I'm not happy with you guys. I'm really not happy with you.
Jimmy, do you think that the Republicans knew what they were doing when they crafted the cuts to Medicaid, knowing that 10 of the states that will, for all purposes, will have a minimum effect on are red states?
Yes, but that is partially correct. They have many red states that will fall apart
26.
because they didn't take it, and you have many states that even with not taking the expansion, question is going to be okay. And this is just pure math. Look, last year we sent you 200 billion dollars for Medicaid. This year we're going to send you 100. Deal with it. They're
Mhm.
going to get a cut anyway. So how they're going to deal with that cut is going to be interesting.
Right.
And
And
how are they going to deal when people start seeing regional hospitals in the South close down, when they see mental health hospitals close down, when they see that the major hospitals are no longer accepting Medicaid for payment because it really is not paying them sufficient for them to really provide the service. That's going to be an interesting thing. What are they going to do when all of a sudden they realize that people are being taken off the criteria because the federal government said you have to work, and you have an 82-year-old person who's seen now, who's receiving Medicaid, and didn't even realize how he should get in a computer and tell them that he's seen now and he cannot work. Look, that's the other problem that I don't think most people. Medicaid and unemployment has really not invested much money to update their software. They
true.
have.
That's true. Yeah.
So now all of a sudden I'm going to have to go on my phone or my laptop or my desktop and send and get into your system, and you have sent 2 million people letters saying or email saying you have to do this in 48 hours or you're going to lose your benefits, and then your system is going to crash down and you're going to have a problem. Look, no, they didn't think it through. In their mind, there's two things that they think about. One, people don't care about the poor, and if it doesn't affect them, they don't care. And
Right.
they still think that the majority of Americans are not going to react to the cuts of Medicaid. It's not. They're not going to. But two, they don't have the cojones to challenge Trump. Trump went to Congress and said, if you don't vote for this, I'll go to your district and I'll run somebody against you and I'll endorse that person,
Right.
and you're going to be able, and you will lose the primary and somebody else will come in. That's the two things. They don't care about the people. they care about getting reelected. So realistically, this is a country where basically both parties are in crisis, serious crisis, and one party thinks they cannot lose, and the other party cannot get their shit together how to challenge the other one because they can't get their shit together. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're in a crisis. As a
Whew.
matter of fact, I had a Republican say these words to me that when I asked him that same question, he said, why should we be concerned? You Democrats are so fucked up that you're not going to add up to a real challenge. And when I heard those words, I said, he's not wrong.
That's true.
He's not wrong. So, can this affect them? Sure. Who's going to challenge him? We don't know.
That's a good point. When you have an impotent opposing party, yeah, you can pretty much do what you want to do and say what you want to say. And speaking of saying what you want to say, the Republicans. Let me throw out Stephen Miller. Um, he went on X to defend the big beautiful bill and the cuts to Medicaid, and spoke about the alleged in his mind the alleged um, cost to the budget to the budget deficit, and in a long tweet post on X, he was explaining how the tax cuts from 2017 were um, they ended, and so bringing it back doesn't necessarily add to the deficit because they're just bringing back what was already established in the first Trump administration. And I'm looking at this post, and it's so convoluted, and the crazy voodoo math and the word soup, and I said this is where the Republicans get themselves in trouble. They they know, regardless of who the audience is, they know that it's bullcrap math, and they still try to sell it. And so this $3 to $4 trillion deficit over 5, 10 years, I cannot recall, is something to be concerned about. And one of my biggest disappointments about this particular budget, along with some of the other things that you talked about. What chance does it have out of the U.S. Senate as is?
None. Zero.
Mm-hmm.
None. Look, senators know they have to run statewide, and they're going to have to run in parts that are very Democrat. They're going to have to run in parts that are very independent. So they cannot afford to be asinine like Steve Miller. And
Right.
let me clarify something that the CPO has come out with. I'm going to give you a simple answer. I think I explained this before, but I'm going to go for it again.
Okay.
Under Bill Clinton and our dear friends, the Republicans in the contract with America, they balanced the budget. They brought down significantly the deficit.
Yeah.
They did. And there are four presidents who have highly increased the deficit since. First one was George Bush when he created, after 9/11, all the special agencies and spend on defense and spend on all this. He went out to the deficit in the trillions.
Yes.
Obama came in, and he really did not control the deficit that well, because when he created the Obamacare, and I'm going to be as a Democrat, it created a deficit, not as big as the one of George W. Bush. Before you Democrats start calling me, you're right, and that one, okay.
Right.
But it did create a deficit. Largest deficit by President Trump was the tax cuts without cutting enough spending. Okay, simple. Then during his administration, we did spend on COVID. The first checks that went out for COVID were under Trump.
Yes.
The second ones were under Biden.
That's correct.
Okay, those checks went out, and the deficit between the tax reductions and the fact that there was no balancing of the budget and expenditures that Trump did cause to happen created the largest deficit of Bush, Obama, and and Trump. Now, Biden created a deficit, but the deficit was more created by Congress, who wanted to pass certain laws that they did pass,
Mm-hmm.
which were blessed by Biden, but certain laws were more for them to stay in power and to get votes and keep people happy and send them a second check, which I found a little bit irresponsible on my part. And they went and spent a lot of money in green energy. Okay, which, by the way, has been eliminated, but still, it's not going to cover the deficit one half of 1%. But it was there. The reality of it is that this new big and beautiful bill will create a larger deficit. Here, Steve Miller has a point. Okay, wow, what is the point?
Mm-hmm.
We're just repeating ourselves. We're going back and doing the same thing, and we're thinking that this time the deficit will be smaller because we've already done it. Oh, really, Steve? I know you're not too smart in your math brain is non-existent, and you only are there to kiss the ass of Donald Trump. But to say that I take a less income than I cut in my expenses, that's a deficit. Musk is correct. The CBO is correct. Moody is correct. The U.S. Stock Exchange is correct. With all due respect, Steve, when you become an economist, talk to me. When you've taken more courses of economy than I have, talk to me. Oh, by the way, he's taken none. Okay, I understand that. So that it's an easy overcome. But please stop lying to the American public. All the U.S. congressmen that are Republicans out there, they're saying that this is not going to affect the deficit. You're liars. All those senators who are trying to ingrace yourself with Donald Trump and say that this is not going to affect the deficit, you are liars. But this is the reality. If you go out there and campaign, you are going to have a big problem. Right now, right now, Marco Rubio's seat is up for grabs.
True.
Okay, it's up for grabs, and here's where it becomes interesting. DeSantis is being investigated by FDLE,
Correct.
and him and his wife,
Yeah.
even if they don't go to jail, their credibility is shot. So those are not going to be able to run for the Senate or for anything. I'm not sure who else is qualified as a Republican to run.
Byron Donalds.
Oh, come on, give me a break. Okay. But then again, I was going to say, who do the Democrats have? Fuck, they don't have anybody.
David Jolly.
Well, yeah, give me a break. Um, hey, Alan Grayson. If you want to go that route, I'll call out another name, Alan Grayson. Yeah, not going to happen. But look, it's just it's going to be interesting. But the reality of it is that at this point, and the Republicans now have decided to honor Mel Brooks and have decided to honor the movie History of the World Part 1 and say to all of us, fuck the poor. That's what you have done. You have reduced the taxes of the rich and a little bit of the middle class. Because I've seen the tax deductions for the middle class, they're really no big deal.
Right.
They're not that big. The big ones are for the rich and the powerful. And those tax cuts are at the expense of healthcare and food in your mouth. Really, really. You could have cut the fence. You didn't. Why? Because you lack the cojones to do your job. You really do. You could have cut some of the expenses that we have waste in Congress. Could have cut your salaries 20%. You want to cut jobs? Cut your staff by 20%. That will leave us 300 million. It's not that great, but it's something. Cut your travel expenses. Whoa! And we could get close to $1 billion. Because for those of you who do not know this, U.S. congressmen and their staff fly through the Office of Congressional uh, Travel Agency. And believe it or not, they are subsidized by you and me. So when I say this, I'm going to say it very respectfully. The Republicans have decided to screw our health care and have decided to screw our ability to eat. So when people tell you that they're on the right track, they are correct. They're on the right track to fuck us.
Mm.
So let's go there.
Jimmy,
But yeah,
I just had two questions, and the first one is about um, the work mandate. What is your thoughts on this proposed work mandate to receive or continue to receive benefits to a certain time frame?
it is a smoke procedure. It's
Mm-hmm.
a smoke thing. Oh, we are now going to require that those who receive Medicaid work. Look, close to half of the people who receive Medicaid are children under the age of 18, especially those who are with single mothers, those who have special conditions and need treatment,
Right.
those whose parents cannot afford health insurance for them, and so on. Then you have people who are disabled but don't qualify for Medicare who get it. Then you have
Mm-hmm.
people of advanced age who don't get it. That's what I meant is the system's going to crash because you're going to have to go and file a work exemption. That's what happened in Georgia and Arkansas. And they took it away because it was a major failure. Because
Okay.
basically what happened was that they started to realize that less than 10% of the people would have to submit something because those who are working have already submitted it and they were on the record because they had to prove their income. Okay. With the proof of income is here's my work. Okay. But the other thing was that a lot of people would have to go on online and say, I'm under the age of 18, I'm exempt. I'm a single mom who takes care of a sick kid or a sick parent, I'm exempt. I'm receiving disability benefits, SSI, and I'm exempt. I'm
Right.
I'm over 72 and I'm exempt, and so on and so on and so on. So it's really more of a smoke thing to show we are requiring people to work to get Medicaid. No, you're not. It's been required for years prior to today. We're proving that you're U.S. citizens. It's always been proved. You have to go into the office and submit a driver's license and submit a birth certificate to qualify for Medicaid and for SNAP. It's always been a requirement. Stop the line that there are people who are here legally receiving these
Right.
benefits. Bullshit. What is what you do? You should say, and if you're going to be honest, is that yes, people who go to the hospital, get services, and don't provide a good uh, ID, still receive services
Mm-hmm.
and bill the U.S. government. That you can say, and I'll accept that. But other than that, there is no fraud. The other one that they were trying to say, well, we're also going to require them to, try, if after a certain time that they're working, that they try to obtain insurance on their own. Sure, not a problem. I don't have a problem. And as a matter of fact, people, let me answer you one thing. You want to know how much of a bullshit this work thing is? If you work, if you work, if you work, you qualify for Obamacare, and you can get it for free
Mm-hmm.
or a very little cost, and it covers better insurance hospital and treatments than Medicaid. So when they're trying to push you to work, is so they could tell you, hey, you're working. Go apply for Medicaid, for Obamacare. The only requirement for Obamacare, for those of you who do not know, because you don't apply for it, is two-parter. One, that your employer doesn't provide insurance, and
Right.
two, that you're working. You go online, you go onto the government, you look at the different plans, you pick one, and you're ready to go.
Right.
And most of them are subsidized by the federal government.
That's
So
correct.
when people tell me work requirement, what are you talking about? If you work, you qualify for Obamacare.
There you are. There you go.
So I'm sick and tired of your government, of Mike Johnson, Creshaw from Texas, and all them going on there and saying we're going to require this. What are you talking about? Makes people say good. Oh, we're going to take people off SNAP and make them self-sufficient by doing that. Really? A single mom who works as a waitress, who doesn't make enough money to feed her kids, you're going to take her off because you think she should work harder? Get your head out of your ass. The real world is not that way. But that's the way they think.
Jimmy, tonight it is May 29th, Thursday. We have part of the Orange County delegation, legislative delegation, Florida um, delegation, speaking to constituents. And we have Representative Enes Kamani, State Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith, and I also believe Congressman Maxwell Frost in attendance to speak to constituents. Going back to what we were saying earlier about what Democrats have to say, and after we just parse through the big beautiful bill and the Medicaid cuts and how there will be cuts here in Florida, however, not as severe or deep as, say, a blue state that has signed on to expand Medicaid. What will they say? And what effect will it have for those in the know who follow politics, um, who may call them out on misinformation? But in essence, what can they say?
Very little. First of all, two of them are in the state of Florida's House and Senate, where they're a minority, where basically
Super minority.
they could just say, I don't agree with the laws that have been passed, but they've been passed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this is right. Okay. Uh, One of them is going to be being on her campaign for mayor of Orlando, and that's fine. That's typical politics, not being critical. But realistically, that is the problem. What I would like for them to say, look, we fucked up. We lost because we fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
The party's not listening to you.
Mm-hmm.
The party is screwing with you. The party, believe it or not, is doing things that really is self-destructing itself.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, the party is continues to take the Hispanic vote for granted, has spent no money on it, has spent no campaign on it, and as a matter of fact, the push comes to shove, they don't care about their representation or doing anything about them at all. They might argue that we need to create uh, certain things for certain groups, but not for the Hispanics. They don't do anything in their language. And basically, at the push comes to shove, when you sit down there, you have uh, one Hispanic, one female, and one African American sitting there and say, hey, I'm here. We're going to discuss this. The three together are not the leadership of our party. I'm sorry, they're not.
That's true.
Okay? Other than Congressman Forrest, we have other congressmen that are not showing up. We have nobody from the state party showing up. And at the end of the day, we are going to go back and talk to the people and listen to what they say and then blow it off. I would like for them to say, look, we fucked it up, and this is the plan. This is what we're going to do in 2026 to gain back power. But I seriously doubt that's going to happen. Because up to now, I have heard no plan from my local leaders. I have heard no plan from my state leaders. And I've heard no plan from my national leaders. The only thing that they have given me is more reason to be discontent and use this podcast to talk about what my party needs to do. I had to include in my weekly podcast the Democrat fuck up and the Republican fuck up. And basically, I'm almost to the point to give that. But what are they going to talk about? Oh, we want to listen to our people. You know, at the end of the day, it's the same suspects that show up and complain about the same things.
Yes.
Okay. You and I've served on committees where basically they come and say the same things time after time.
Yes.
And it's really sad because what I would like is our party to, some people say, look, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to have to break away from this thing. And we're going to have to break away from the three things that are killing our party. And the three things that are killing our party. One, number three is woke. We don't need to be woke. Once we take power, we can impose our beliefs, yes, but that's not where we need to campaign. Two, what's fucking us up is that we're taking for granted certain votes and we're ignoring others. We have done nothing to get the white vote. We think we have the female vote, but we've lost it in the last two elections. But where do we have it? Okay, we have done nothing to maintain the Hispanic vote and the African American vote. And proof of that is that both of them are going towards the Republicans.
Yes.
The number one thing is that we have failed to listen, respond to our constituency. We have said, we're smarter than you. We're going to fuck you over and say that Biden is not senile, but when he is. Okay, that was not me. No. Okay.
Not smart. That's not smart. One thing I do want to say, Jimmy, I don't think Democrats are necessarily going over to the Republican side. Maybe, those individuals in the state legislature. I think, and I was looking at these numbers earlier, that they're moving to the nonpartisan or no party affiliation. And a vast majority of them are just sitting out elections, whether it's a special election or whether it's an election for a municipality, as we had in March. There was a lot of people sitting out, as we saw in the special elections in Congressional District 6 and Congressional District 1. It wasn't these wild numbers that the Democrats really needed to make a difference. So I just want to add that they are going to the Republican side. However, the data that I'm looking at, we're seeing far more of them becoming non-party affiliates or independents, and that's an incredibly growing demographic. And if the Electoral College had three candidates in 2024, Harris, Trump, and did not vote, would have won the Electoral College. That is a stain on American democracy, at least civic engagement.
Well, yes, but the problem is who is to blame for that? Look, the Democrats among themselves have stole in their own party 2 elections. Okay? I'll talk to some of my fellow Democrats. Bernie was ahead. He had won 6 states.
Yes,
6 states. All of a sudden, the minuscule state of South Carolina was won by Joe Biden, and everything turned. Things started canceling here. They started canceling there because of the pandemic. And all of a sudden, everybody said, well, we're going to give it to Joe Biden, even though he was not the clear winner. But
Uh-huh.
they gave it to him. Joe Biden, 4 years later, said, if you run against me, I'm going to crucify you. And everybody, no, no. And people like Buttigieg and all those others went out there and told
Phillips, Marianne Williams. Yes.
and they told us that he was not seen out, that he was competent. But when
Yes.
we saw it in June in the debate, all of a sudden, well, that's not the Joe Biden that I remember. Bullshit. You lied to us.
Yep.
And what did you do?
Correct.
You turned around and sold a second election and imposed Kamala on us. And then you wonder why people stay home and don't vote. Really? Really? That was your fuck up of last year. And you continue to do it.
Democrats have a credibility issue.
Among themselves.
Yes.
You don't have to go outside of the party. We don't trust our leadership. I don't trust my leadership. I'm a Democrat, I'm a liberal, and I don't trust the leadership of the National Democratic Party, the state party. I don't trust it. And I'm
Yeah.
going to call them out. I don't trust you. So, with that, let's go to the fuck up of the Democrats.
Here we go.
Fuck up of the Democrats this week is a very simple one. You keep going to try to explain this. The way you have to explain what just happened is just tell people that mental health is going to suffer and it's going to be more people with mental health issues out there, not ending. That people will be cut off SNAP and people will be cut off Medicaid, and that hospitals will be cut off, and that doctors will receive less benefits, and that basically in the future, this will affect us all. And what did the U.S. population get back in exchange? To make the rich richer. Nothing else. We did not get more defense money. No, we did not get more money for our State Department. We did not get more money for education. We did not get more money for anything else. We got more of nothing just to make the richer rich. And by the way, we create a deficit, which means that in the future, your kids and grandkids will suffer the consequences. But that's okay, because the Republican way is very simple. Fuck the poor.
Right.
Okay, now let's go into the Republican fuck up of the week.
Okay.
Some people would think I'm going to go with the big and beautiful budget. No. That one has been exploded, and that's going to be exploded.
Okay.
It is with their lying and their corruption. It is sickening for me to have people say lock up Hillary Clinton because she used a server, even though that did not make her any richer. It's supposed to put our national security in jeopardy. Okay, I'll accept that one. And the other one was that Biden's son benefited from his father's last name, which is a Democrat. I'll accept that one. That is true. He did.
Okay.
No question about it. But now you have the people saying certain truths that are Republicans who are criticizing President Trump. Start by Mike Johnson, who said that the president is very transparent in everything he does. Yes, that he had a dinner at $1 million per person that was paid through Bitcoin, and that if you paid $1 million through Bitcoin, you would be able to sit down at a dinner with the president of the United States. That was very transparent. Yes, it's corruptly transparent, but you're right, Mike Johnson. It's transparent. Okay, he's not hiding anything. He's just taking it out. The other thing he said that he was very transparent was in his trip to Saudi Arabia. He went there to get the jet. He went there with his sons, and he got permits from Kuwait, from the American, to build buildings up there and to create business profits up there. And his foundation and his business received millions of dollars from the Saudis and from the United Emirates and from Qatar, and that he made millions of dollars. And that was quite transparent. Everybody saw him being corrupt. As a matter of fact, he said, what's wrong with him making money during his presidency? He didn't see anything wrong with it. He is very transparently
That's
being
true.
corrupt.
That's true.
So that is what I would call the fuck up of the Republicans, because you're our hypocrites. Did Biden take advantage of his father's last name? He did.
Sure.
I'll accept that. But you need to take an exchange that President Trump has benefited financially from his presidency, his personal character, and his business character, and that basically you have failed to regulate bitcoins because you're afraid of the president. You're not doing your job of legislating and being a balance in the powers. You just have your head up his ass and you are incompetent to do anything. So those are the two fuck ups. But I would like to end with this. People, the employees of the US government are not your enemies, are not your problem. Your problem is you have a corrupt Congress and a corrupt Senate and a corrupt president who is fucking you over just to put money in their pockets. There is your problem. There's one word that is going to put this country down, and it's corruption. If we don't stop it, we have a problem. With that, subscribe, like, dislike. I don't care. Give me your comments, good, bad, or indifferent. If you want to give me an emoji with the finger, I like those too. That tells me, taking with the words of Marco Rubio, that I'm doing my job correctly. So, with that, I will see you next week, and hopefully, remember, always question authority.
Amen to that, Jimmy. Thank you, Jimmy. This is From the Margins with Jimmy Afant. We'll see you the next time.
And David Washington, don't leave him out.
This is your show, Jimmy. This is your show. You're carrying the whole network.
I know, and it's my pleasure.
All right. See you the next time, Jimmy.
Take care.
Bye now.